It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. Welcome to a Friday and welcome to the beginning of the end as we start our long goodbye to Joe Manchin. Gary,
well, it's not goodbye.
It's get out.
He's taking a page out of the Democrats from 2016 and 2018. Especially, I believe, 2018. Remember when they didn't pick up the seats that they expected to pick up?
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, it was 2016 when they were going to go over flyover country. Remember?
Yeah, after the election, yeah.
Was it 2016?
Yeah, it was 2016.
We can't figure out what happened, and so we're going to all go and
put some coveralls on.
And we're going to fly over. Well, instead of flying over flyover country, we're going to drive through flyover country and figure out what it is that Middle America wants. And you know something? They never did it. Now, that's what Manchin says he's going to do. He's going to go to flyover country and figure out how to unite moderates.
Yeah, you could start in your own state. That might be one place to start. The place where you think you would lose if you ran. That place?
I'm trying to think what movie it was in where somebody said, "Nobody likes you." Was that Mike Myers in Wayne's World 2?
May have been.
On the stage with Chris Farley. Remember when Chris?
It may have been.
I've got nowhere else to go. You're useless. Nobody likes you. That's the first thing that came to mind. It's like, well, you really just you blew it because you were so wishy-washy, say one thing to another thing, that you ended up neither side liking you.
Yeah, it's called conviction. Get some.
Right. So now when neither side likes you, the backup is, okay, I'm going to go to flyover country.
Yeah.
Oh, I
remember that 10 minutes that the liberal media was saying that. Then they sobered up and said, forget that. We're not doing that.
I was looking. I'm doing this from memory because I searched it and I could not find it again.
I'm not going to Lincoln, Nebraska.
I tried to put this. I tried to put this on bookmarks in Twitter right before I went to sleep last night, and it just didn't stick to bookmarks. But it was somebody from the New York Times who wrote, "This is what's going to happen in the election," and they said, and they said, it was like Trump from prison. 43%. Biden from the hospital with Kamala Harris temporarily taking over, and it was like 30%. And then it was like Manchin Kerry, 17%. That's what got to me. Manchin Kerry.
Or Manchin Cheney.
Yeah, Manchin Cheney, but the Kerry just got me laughing because they're both. I think the point was they're both leaving, and then it was like Jill Stein too, or it's now Jill Stein's running on the Green Party, and I think maybe whoever wrote it had maybe had Kennedy in there or whatever, but it was just I burst out laughing, and I'm like, okay, I understand here, all right, okay, typically it comes from the New York Times, so you have Trump in prison. And there was Biden in the hospital. Then I burst out laughing when it was Manchin Kerry ticket. Oh, my God.
I like the meme that somebody made, Mitt Romney standing there that, he's not going to run again. He plans to spend more time with the family, and in the background it's a herd of rhinos.
Yes. And we mean real,
actual
rhinos, right?
Yeah. That's funny. Ted Nugent posted that. He was one of them that posted it. I saw it probably in about a dozen places. I think a lot of people reposted Ted's.
I talked to Independent Bob yesterday.
Yeah,
I hadn't talked to Independent Bob in a while, and he was talking about the Trump loyalist that he can't stand who calls everybody else a rhino. And I went, well, I've been called a rhino. He goes, what's your response? I go, absolutely right. I'm becoming much too conservative for the Republican Party.
Oh, yeah.
I said, so we've actually, when people have called us that, we've just embraced it and gone, well, yeah, because the typical thing is if you're a rhino, you're not conservative enough.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever taken it the opposite way.
It's like you've got all the ingredients to make the best cake on the planet, but when you put them in the bowl, it's all crap. It's garbage. It all just kind of disintegrates. And, that's what the GOP feels like right now. I'm hoping at some point they can come together. I really do hope so, because this is the opportunity. You and I were talking during the Trump administration. We said, look, on intellectual property rights with China, if we don't, as a nation, and then get all of our trade partners, the entire planet, to choke out China in terms of intellectual property rights and make sure that we enforce that, if we don't do that now, we're never going to do it. Well, it didn't get done during the Trump administration as hard as they tried. That wasn't done. And I fear that if we can't beat the radicals now, if the GOP can't beat the radicals now, I fear you'll never be able to beat them. It is over the top apparent. You only have to point. That's all you have to do. The ads write themselves. They actually, in fact, all but produce themselves. All you got to do is put the clips together. All you got to do is point to the number of items right now that are broken, which is pretty much everything. And I really do. I'm at that point where if the GOP can't pull it together for 24, as radical as the left has become, and I really think the October 7th was a part of that pivotal moment. As we've said, we're carving out and definitely defining the radicals and setting them apart from everyone else. And if you can't do it now as a party, you won't ever be able to do it. That's my fear. I really hope the GOP can pull it together. You look at what happened the other day with Tuesday. Look, on the issues, you see where there's pretty good vote for conservative ideas. Find some candidates that mean it.
I was thinking the same thing yesterday, especially when Fox News had the story that thehill.com actually ran in late October. In a stunning decision to potentially expose vital national security secrets to America's top adversaries, the Biden administration last month quietly invited Russia and China to send observers to upcoming nuclear weapons-related tests at the U.S. Nevada test site. Why Beijing and Moscow have not responded yet, Congress should prohibit such visits and invest in the U.S. nuclear deterrent instead. The catalyst for this misguided effort was an explosive and misleading news report last month that created the false equivalency between China's and Russia's actions at their own test sites and U.S. activities in Nevada. So this isn't the first time a naive and dangerous proposal like this has come forward. And when I read that yesterday, I'm reading it from The Hill, but the Fox News also had a story on it. It was a top story, and now I can't find it on the front page. I hate that when they do that.
Yeah.
I wake up in the morning, there's a front page article, and then you look a couple hours later and it doesn't exist anywhere.
Right.
But it probably does. It's just not on the front page. I couldn't find it. But you just look at it, and I just said to myself, it's almost as if the Biden administration is doing everything that would turn off every single American, make us less secure, make our lives harder, less secure, commit energy, economic, and national security suicide, and they just keep going further.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, let's see how far we can destroy the country, and the idiots out there will still vote for us.
Yeah, it's like Joe Biden is saying to Joe Biden, hold my beer. every time.
Yeah.
It really is.
And so when I saw that yesterday, and then the whole pronoun thing where they want to mandate for certain government agencies where you have to, you must, or you'll get fired if you don't use the proper pronoun. And that came out as, the criticism was that's unconstitutional. They can't do this. And I looked at those two stories and I went, my God, it's like you would actually think, if I'm sitting in the White House and I'm an advisor and I'm sitting in when they have those morning meetings, I'd actually say, are you trying to lose? Or do you believe that the public is so stupid that you can do everything to hurt the country and hurt the citizens of the United States, and they'll keep voting for you? And then Biden would look at me and say, look at Tuesday.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, that's all that they need. Look, I dare to say no one is more disappointed with the performance by the party on Tuesday than people like David Axelrod, who don't want Joe Biden to run. And it's as you said, we came in here Tuesday night with a big celebration coming from the White House. There's no way he's not running.
Yeah.
If you had any question about it at all, that question was answered Tuesday night. And then since Tuesday as well, you saw it play out. We saw it play out yesterday. They're fully confident that they can win. And I'm fully confident that the GOP can implode over and over again. I've seen it happen. I'm old enough to remember when the GOP couldn't get it together. Oh, wait, that's right now.
Well, what I thought was interesting, Pete Ducey asking him, what do you think about the polls out there, showing you're down in the swing states? You're looking at the wrong polls.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, the president is criticizing, you're only looking at CNN and the New York Times, and that isn't true. There's more polls out there.
Right.
But here's the president criticizing Fox News for using liberal CNN and New York Times polls that he claims are completely and totally inaccurate, and all the other polls show him winning 6 out of the 8 swing states. And I'm like, what are all the other polls showing this? Because I don't know those polls. Please show them to me.
Well, and there's surrogates on Wednesday morning after the election results. On Wednesday morning, we're saying the polls don't matter. The election results do.
Well, that's a great point, though. That is a good point.
And now he's saying, well, look at the polls. Well, I'm sorry, do the polls matter or not?
Yeah. Well, they do.
When you win.
They do when you win.
Yes, when you're up.
Well, look, we've done it long enough. I mean, we don't get it as much anymore because we've explained that we don't believe any individual poll is any type of political gospel.
Right. I took a personal household poll and asked if I would make a great president. It was 100% yes.
And so when we, because we used to get calls going, well, I've never been polled. And what we find out is people don't like polls that they don't agree with, and therefore they question the validity of the polls.
Right.
And the polls that agree with them are totally and completely 100% accurate.
The only thing you and I look at is the movement in polls.
Yeah.
That's it.
The momentum.
And the difference between certain candidates in polls when we looked at the head-to-head in certain states and said, okay, this may be an outlier, it may be incorrect, but look at the swing between the candidates in the GOP field. That's what we looked at. And we still don't, it's still not the gospel as far as we're concerned. Because you get a year from now and again, you can only tell after the election. Then you have to go back to the most recent polls, which are usually the ones that are most accurate. And be careful. Don't write us the email. You said they're accurate. Most accurate. By comparison, it's relative. And they may not be accurate. But every election season, there tends to be 1 or 2 pollsters who get fairly close.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually right at the end.
And we bring that to you after the election is over. We've always done that. We've always looked at the credibility of the polls, afterwards.
Yeah, because the methodology, they're always tweaking the methodology. I don't know where the methodology is these days. I really don't.
Well, you remember in 2016 when you had a couple of polls show that movement. for Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And, the media was saying it's not accurate. But
Right.
then we know now that Hillary Clinton and the internal polls showed the exact same thing.
Exactly.
And that's why, remember, when they had that celebration all set up.
Yeah, the fireworks.
The fireworks
in New York, and they canceled it.
Before the results were in, and we're
Right.
like, and it's like they knew. Their internal polling showed them that about 3 weeks before there was huge movement, which is, again, why when you look at polls, because all the movement in the presidential election polls of 2016 came within 3 weeks of the election.
You and I were saying for about 2 or 3 months prior to the election, watch Pennsylvania. We don't believe some of the polls in Pennsylvania because there was something going on there, and we were right about that. We could have been wrong, but in that case, we were right about that. There was something going on that the polls weren't reflecting, and that could be the case in 24. Right now, the Democrats are concerned about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is not concerned about Joe Biden.
86690 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold temperatures and water can lead to only one outcome, and ice has no place in a truck's air system. That's why it's crucial to keep your air system moisture-free as the temperatures begin to drop. One of the simplest and most cost-effective ways to keep moisture out of your air system is to change your air dryer desiccant cartridge. This should be changed as recommended by the manufacturer or annually as part of your preventive maintenance routine and preparation for winter. Make sure your air system is in top condition before plunging temperatures put it to the test.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I just love this story, and this is the only place I've seen it reported. Israel reportedly agreed to a unilateral daily 4-day pause in the fight against Hamas in Gaza for humanitarian reasons, though it was already pausing it on its own and providing an evacuation corridor already every day between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. The White House announced it yesterday as if they had a big breakthrough because the Associated Press reported Israel has agreed to put in place a 4-hour humanitarian pause in its assault on Hamas in northern Gaza. The White House said Thursday as President Joe Biden pressed Israelis for a multi-day stoppage in the fighting in a bid to release hostages held by the militant group. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said the daily humanitarian pause would be announced Thursday and that the Israelis had committed to announcing each 4-hour window at least 3 hours in advance every day. But as this is from John Nolte and Breitbart, but as Breitbart reported last week, Israel has already been doing the pauses.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like they've already been doing it, and the White House comes out and says, okay, we got Israel to agree to it. They're already doing it.
Right.
And so this is a White House trying to ride that line where, see, we're pressuring Israel to do something, and Israel was already doing it.
Right. At the beginning, you said 4-day. I think you meant 4 hour.
4 hour, yes,
Yeah.
4 hour, not 4 hour. 4 hour, yes.
Which is interesting because yesterday when I was reading a story, I thought I had read 4 days. Or no, I read 4 hours, and I thought, do they mean 4 days? And then the Nolte story was there from Breitbart. By the way, all is fair in this back and forth between the U.S. and Israel because remember at the beginning with that $6 billion when they came out and just restated what was going on with the $6 billion and made it look like a development.
Yep.
That something new had occurred.
Yep.
With Qatar. And it was like, no, that nothing is actually changed on that $6 billion. That $6 billion that would be available to Iran. And Iran, of course, funding Hamas and other terrorist organizations. Well, then this is fair, is it not? Look, they're doing daily humanitarian pauses.
We announced today this is what Israel.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Carney, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, when I saw that yesterday and the White House attempting to take a little bit of a mini victory lap that they, we got Israel to agree to 4-hour humanitarian pauses, and they announced it Thursday. And Israel's defense minister also yesterday came out and said, I will repeat this again, there'll be no ceasefire without the return of hostages. We will take any action necessary for this. Right now, there are Israeli children in the Gaza Strip. Some of them saw their own parents die in front of their own eyes. Savages have kidnapped them and are holding them hostages. We will not stop fighting until we bring our children home. President Joe Biden is pushing for even a longer pause for 3 days. The Associated Press reported it is unclear what benefit that would provide, especially as Israel presses its advantage against Hamas, except the political advantage of appeasing Arab and Muslim American voters in Michigan, a key swing state that Biden needs to win in November, next November, in his quest to be reelected. And that's absolutely the truth. But for the 4-hour humanitarian pause that the White House announced they got Israel to agree with, that's false. They didn't get Israel to agree with it.
No.
Israel was already doing that.
Yep. And
for almost a week, they've been doing it.
So a couple of things here, because I think this was quite possibly at the beginning, I think the intent was for Israel to basically tell the world, hey, we're doing it every day. Quit your protesting. We're doing it every day. So in that way, it disarms a lot of what's going on with the protests. Not that Israel is necessarily worried about that, but they can demonstrate that and then move on. And then the White House comes in, of course, as Joe Biden always does, and wants to take credit. And then, see what we did? We're getting them to take no, you're not. You're not changing anything. And it won't appease, because you can't appease the radicals. That's not going to do anything, but there isn't anything you can do to appease the radicals.
The pro-slaughter baby protesters were out in front of the New York Times yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it's just mind-boggling, that kind of mindset. It really is. And this is why I said, earlier, if the GOP doesn't find a way to get it together. Look, I know they're not going to get, you're not going to get a massive swing in the Senate, but you hope to win the Senate, gain some seats in the House, and win the White House. Now, don't ask me how, because I can't tell you that, because right now, you and I looked at it yesterday. We've been talking for a while about how, look, Trump, it appears, is going to be the nominee. And if that's the case, there has to be a building of consensus. You have to set aside, it's not that you can't have differences, but you have to show that you can be united as a party and also work through those differences. If the goal is to gut the GOP all at once, then you can take the Matt Gaetz road and see where it gets you. Because it quite likely would get you to no wins beyond that. You might get the win, and then afterward, if their goal is to get the win in the White House and then gut the GOP, well, then I can't tell you. I can't tell you how it ever comes together for a big win to where you're going to have the power necessary in order to actually get things done. And job number one with the federal government is always national defense. Seal the border. But I would say probably tied for number one right now, of course, is the economy. And things have to get done. And the GOP is going to have to work together on getting that done. And my confidence is waning because, you look at Tuesday night, You got to have the candidates. You're going to have to find the right people. If you look at what happened Tuesday night, you and I have been talking about this. Well, I mean, we talked about it after the Tea Party. You know, the Tea Party picked some horrible candidates.
Oh,
it was horrible.
Horrible.
And
by the way, we were severely criticized by Republicans for calling the Republican Party out for picking such horrible candidates that all lost.
Right. You got to find some that you could properly vet. And you can start by going to their social media pages and scroll back a few years. But quite frankly, you should find those with conviction, those who actually mean it, those who actually are determined to get things done. And those are the types of candidates they need. But it's not just the party, of course. It also requires the rank and file to get it done and put those people on the ballot. And then on Election Day, you've got to put them in. And those steps seem, well, they are logical. They don't seem logical. They're logical and they seem easy. They seem basic. It seems like, the Politics 101 class. But for some reason, they just can't get it done across the board. Stop it with the candidates who are in it for themselves, who want to create viral moments for them. Get the candidates who have conviction, who will fight to get things done.
The other problem, as we've stated, and by the way, I had a guy who was furious at me because when we have said before, where we are today is because the majority of the voters voted this way. Mm-hmm. This guy was furious at me. He said, "You said that every single American, is not a fiscal conservative," which I never said.
No.
And you and I have always said the biggest complaints we get on the show are things we've never said.
Right.
Because if anybody who listens to the show knows, we've said, well, no, we're not talking about me. We're not talking about Eric. We're not talking about most of our listeners.
Right.
Because we have liberal listeners, too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a true conservative, no. You look at the situation and you know what's coming and you're worried about it. But I'm just awfully sensitive on that. But when you look at, the reality of, again, let's make sure so I don't tick off anybody. The majority of the citizens of this country, they claim they want to cut, but what they want to cut, and as we stated many times, the majority of Republicans believe you can balance the budget by getting rid of foreign aid and wasteful spending. You can't.
Yeah, we got an email on that the other night. I'm like, I didn't even respond to it because, again, it's somebody who believes we said one thing that we didn't say.
Well, what did they say?
It was something about calling us rhinos and saying you guys are something anti-American, un-American, whatever it is, when you say that, and this was the incomplete part of it, that when you say stopping foreign aid won't get it done. We're talking on fiscal levels. Because the conversation, they people who don't hear what we say, they transform that conversation into something, number one, that they think they heard, and number two, that applies to, wrongly applies, because it's not what we said, to how they feel about, in this case, foreign aid. Because you can't get there solving our debt or our deficit.
No, you can't. It's
by
not,
cutting foreign aid, you won't even come close.
No, and this is not an opinion.
No,
on whether
it's math
on whether particular foreign aid we should be doing or not. It's the math. If you got rid of it all, would you solve the debt problem? And no, you would not.
No, you would not.
We've never even gotten into whether because there is foreign. Let's put it this way: there is foreign aid that's ridiculous. Giving $100 million to Afghanistan after we left.
Yes.
And calling it humanitarian aid, knowing the Taliban is rebuilding because of it.
Right.
That is bad foreign aid.
Yes.
But that's not our, that's not the point that we were making. The point we were making is if you got rid of all foreign aid, you're not going to solve the debt problem.
Exactly. And the criticism through the email was as if we supported foreign aid.
Well, there is some foreign aid I do support.
It's necessary.
Yeah, there's some.
Well, I guess let me rephrase that. It was as if we supported all foreign aid.
No, and absolutely we don't.
No.
But you use foreign aid. The United States does it in order to enact influence. And if you can,
we need that influence so we can have access to parts of the world that are dangerous, where our enemies are planning, plotting,
right,
to come at us, and that's reality. If you don't like that reality, I don't know what to tell you, but that is reality.
Right.
When it comes to foreign aid with Ukraine, when it comes to foreign aid with the Taliban, when it comes to, we can have discussions on each of those fronts as to what needs to be done and what should be stopped.
Well, I mean, for example, the whole Ukraine thing, it's not. If I'm president of the United States or I'm a senator or congressperson, it isn't specifically about Ukraine. It is about challenging Russia, which we've been doing since the Cold War, whenever you have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
And so you may have imperfect situations that happen in places like Ukraine where you don't have exactly, because there's a lot of criticism about Zelensky canceling elections and things like that. But when you're in war, for your survival, would the United States do that under martial law?
Right.
If we were in the situation of Ukraine,
right,
you can make the argument, yes. But there is no perfect situation when you're supporting. There is no perfect situation in a war ever. I mean, it's what we're dealing with right now with the left. Not one civilian dies. I'm sorry, wars don't work that way. And, civilians are going to die in a war when you're attacked like that. But no, I would say probably a significant portion. If I had it here in front of me, I don't have it here in front of me because I didn't know this would be the discussion. Each country that we give foreign aid to, you and I could point out and go, nope, 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 nope. Are we giving too much foreign aid? Do I believe? Yes. Is some foreign aid necessary? Yes. That wasn't the argument we're making.
No.
We're saying if you got rid of all foreign aid, that's the opinion, and we didn't come up with it. That's the opinion of every poll and when we have talked about it, normally we bring up the polls that show both majority of Republicans and Democrats believe you can solve the budget problem by getting rid of foreign aid and wasteful spending, whatever wasteful spending means. But it sounds great, but you can't.
Well, because it's the math isn't there. And then beyond that, too many people have it in their mind, don't spend it over there, spend it over here where you're still spending. So that doesn't even solve the spending crisis.
No. If you got rid of the foreign aid, that doesn't go to Americans.
That's what we've dealt with. How many? Right. I don't know how many times.
Where it goes to Americans is you're spending less, and therefore your debt is less, and therefore hopefully the interest on the debt is less.
Then no one wants to hear that. They want to hear we sent $100 billion to this country.
No.
We need to spend it over here. That doesn't solve it. And that's the problem we're in. Nobody wants to cut spending, with the exception of very few left in this country that are true fiscal conservatives.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And that's the thing as a talk show host. I don't mind if somebody disagrees with me, but I just love it because you and I talk about this. It's something we talk about all the time off the air. It's like, okay, here's somebody critical of what we said. I'll read it to you, and you look at me and say, we never said that. And I'm like, I know.
Right.
About 95% of the feedback we get from people that are furious with us are things we've never said.
Right, and
it's
the older I get, the more deaf I become. My ears aren't so great, and so they say you're a rhino, and then I said, did you say wino or rhino? Because one of those I will debate with you.
Well, I was telling that to Independent Bob yesterday. He said, you mean you admit you're a rhino? I go, well, yeah, I'm becoming much more conservative than the Republican Party is.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. And
right.
I said, I'm registered, I vote in the state of Texas in the Republican primaries, but I am an independent.
Right.
Anyway,
right.
But it's just like rhino doesn't mean anything anymore because as we have taken it to the point, well, yeah, I'm a rhino. I'm more conservative than most Republicans right now.
Well, now define conservative.
Yeah, that's true.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here. Download our app today and listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. Well, what happened in Congress this week that might interest you? Especially if you're up right now and you're driving somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
The House took up a measure on Tuesday to block federal funding for a mandate for technology that would measure driver behavior and shut down vehicles if it detects drunk driving or any other impairment. Representative Tom Massey of Kentucky, backed by at least a dozen other Republicans, introduced legislation to stop the mandate. Under the mandate, beginning in 2026, automobile manufacturers must equip all new vehicles with cameras and sensors to detect intoxication and other dangerous driving behaviors. The technology would prevent cars from operating if the sensors determine the driver is impaired in some way. Critics say the technology is imperfect and intrusive and would leave motorists stranded and subject them to unconstitutional snooping, among other problems. And that is the argument that's out there from critics, that because in the bill they really don't define what the parameters and standards are for this.
Right. And that leaves it open to the executive branch to come in through a rulemaking and change those parameters on the fly and basically ramp them up. When they do something like this, you're basically saying, well, any executive branch can come in, just like a lot of the rulemakings over the years that regarding stuff like this. But this is new territory with the fact that the technology is far from perfect. And then, of course, number one, my greatest concern is how intrusive it is.
Well, I mean, there's been furious blowback from the administration for the critics, some critics, not all, that are stating, well, wait a minute. Is this going to, if it picks that up that I'm impaired in some way, is this going to contact police, and will they be brought out to me through my GPS inside of my vehicle?
Right.
That something is wrong, and all of a sudden I'm, sitting there being arrested for something that I'm not because of a technology flaw.
Right.
As Massey told the Washington Times, I think it's going to be a train wreck. He equates the technology to a kill switch for cars. He authored an amendment blocking funding for the mandate for 1 year. Lawmakers debated the amendment this week. If it passes, it will be included in the House version of the 2024 Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Funding Bill, and will have a shot at inclusion in the spending measure that will eventually make it to President Biden's desk. The mandate became law with little fanfare or notice, but the technology has been quietly under development for years. Massey believes most Republicans and even Democrats will support his defunding effort out of concern that the technology could harm motorists. He warned that the technology could misinterpret navigation of icy roads in a blizzard or other road conditions as impairment and then strand motorists. Quote, in order for a car to be smart enough to know that you're not driving well and to capture all those conditions accurately, the car would almost have to be smart enough to drive itself. It's literally a backseat driver. Many lawmakers were unaware of the mandate that was tucked into the $1.2 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act passed with bipartisan support and signed by Mr. Biden in November of 2021. It requires Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to issue a final rule by 2024 that mandates all vehicles be equipped with advanced drunk and impaired driving prevention technology. The federal government and automakers have partnered for years to develop a driver alcohol detection system for safety. The technology measures driver intoxication through breath or touch without requiring the driver to blow into a breathalyzer or take any action. The system has been designed to flag blood level alcohols above the legal limit. If the driver exceeds the limit, the system prevents the car from moving. The system has been tested by a group of drivers in Massachusetts, and it still is under development. The breakthrough technology is designed to be fast, accurate, reliable, and affordable, all without affecting normal driving behavior, the website pledged. And they go through the drunk driving groups that are for it. And then it says it will be expanded eventually to detect and shut down cars, not only for drunk driving, but for other potentially hazardous situations, such as distracted driving and fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
One of the and here's the thing. I know that in my new vehicle, I've got all the latest technology, lane, blind spot monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that rainstorm we had last week, where I had to come in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. My lane detectors or the blind spot detectors were going off like crazy.
Yeah.
And there was nobody there.
Right.
All the way in. That's how hard it was raining. And my detectors were going off. It was beeping like crazy. And it kept reading, the automatic braking system kept reading somebody in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting that sign because I've got, everything in my windshield. Brake, brake, brake. There was nothing to brake for.
Right.
Except raindrops.
Right.
So that technology is not perfect.
No.
At all, by any means.
It hasn't been from the beginning.
Right.
And that's the problem, is that there are certain things that the technology is never going to be able to detect. And this is also the problem, they bring up, the car would have to drive itself in order to, accommodate for all this stuff. But even the self-driving cars are far from perfect. Those are this technology. When you talk about mitigation for an accident and everything else, and it's just a warning system, that's one thing. If you're talking about kill switch type technology, then everybody who wakes up late in the morning and has to rush to their car to try and get to work on time is going to be deemed impaired before that coffee kicks in.
Well, as it says right here, Massey has a truck that has the technology without the kill switch.
Right.
And he says he has little faith in the automatic backseat driver that has the power to shut down the car. His new truck alerts him frequently with an icon suggesting he might be fatigued and to stop and have a cup of coffee, even though he doesn't feel tired at all.
Right.
He said it's not always accurate. It's not always helpful. It's just an annoyance. If that same system is wired to a shutoff switch, there are going to be a lot of people mad at their vehicles.
Well, and, you apply this to commercial vehicles, we're doomed. Because if you're saying that it's going to be based on the number of times you blink, where your eyes go, and all this, well, I know that my allergies are kicking in and I'm blinking a little bit more, or my eyes are turning a little bit differently, but I'm not impaired. So there's the difference. You're getting AI to judge impairment, and AI judges the impairment based on the human input of someone like a Pete Buttigieg on his bicycle who says, you can't look straight forward without blinking, so you're impaired.
I don't know why, but when you said Pete Buttigieg on the bicycle, I thought the imagery was Pee Wee Herman on his bicycle. That's why I started laughing.
Mine wasn't far from that, but yours is better. That's great. With a little bell, ring, ring,
Yes.
ring, ring. Pull over. You're impaired.
Now that come to think of it, he does look a little bit like Pee Wee Herman.
He does. This is and the guy from Mad Magazine. But this is
yes, he does.
And this is the problem that always persists in this kind of rulemaking and legislation, is that it starts out with this, and the answer is, and I can hear, Secretary Pete right now. Well, I don't want my family to share the road with drunk drivers. Well, nobody does. That's not the concern here, because there is technology for those that are convicted of repeated DUIs. There is technology where they have to breathe into, their breathalyzer. The car's not going to stop. It's not going to go anywhere. And I absolutely believe in that kind of technology for those who have been convicted, or maybe they work out a deal or whatever it is with prosecution that says, okay, I'll agree to have this on my car. Whatever the case may be, it's a given that person needs to be managed in a way that prevents them from getting behind the wheel when they've had too much to drink. But now we're talking about impaired driving, and that does get into if you knew the truth about how many people would qualify as impaired at any given time, but especially drive time, and not just morning. You go to lunch, those day walkers out there that go to lunch, eat a big lunch, after lunch, you feel like you need a nap, and that kind of keeps going until, you get home. Well, guess what? For humans to come in and say, we need to, program this to detect these things. You can apply those things, but the fact of the matter is a great number of people would be deemed impaired because the technology is going to be controlled by this blanket one-size-fits-all mindset. And the fact of the matter is there are a lot of people out there that are a little tired when they get behind the wheel in the morning. They're a little tired when they get behind the wheel in the evening. They're not impaired to the point that they should be prohibited from moving their vehicle.
And from someone who, when I was probably 19 or 20, and I fell asleep.
Right. Yeah.
And I was a club DJ, and I was working a lot. I mean, that's when I was working 2 jobs and going to college.
Yeah.
And it was, my club DJ shift was done. I didn't drink at all when I did that. I mean, I just didn't. Yeah. And I was going back. I was living with my parents still in college, and went off the side of the road, went into a field, and woke up as I was in the field, moving probably at 40 miles an hour, but took the car and put it right back on the highway and went, whew, I'm safe. Mm-hmm. And then the oil light went on, and I busted my oil pan. And I remember my dad picking me up. But I know what that tired is. Mm-hmm. I know.
Sure.
And I'm so disciplined now with my sleep that I don't think I've been there in ages where it's, been like that before. But, we work. Anybody who works third shift, you're getting up and you may be a little bit tired. Now, you've slept. I can't tell you how many times that I will wake up right at 10 o'clock. I mean, the alarm will go off.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm absolutely drugged. And you feel like, it's such a great sleep.
Yeah, right.
And you're like, it does, unless you have a cup of coffee and an hour later, you feel like you're wide awake. Now, am I impaired not to be able to drive? I don't believe so.
It's how most people actually wake up. About a month from today, I'll celebrate 27 years doing this shift, this show. And that's the one thing that you know, that at times sleep is going to be evasive. By the way, it's evasive for people who work 8 to 5. Insomnia, quite unfortunately, is a thing.
Oh, yeah.
And when people don't get enough sleep, that's what happens. So because a lot of this technology is built on your head movement, built on your eye movement, how your eyes move, how many times you blink. And if you've ever woken up where your eyes just are dry, it doesn't matter. You just can't. You're just blinking, and you're just trying to, do anything you can to stop it. And you put drops in and everything else, but your eyes are just dry. Well, that could mimic an impaired driver situation where the kill switch all of a sudden kicks in. Imagine if we put this on first responder vehicles. Firefighters don't always get a full night's sleep. Sometimes they do, but it's why they sleep at the firehouse, right? Mm-hmm. So that we can make sure that they get as much rest as possible. But the fact of the matter is, sometimes they're a little bit tired. Are they impaired? Well, no. But imagine if we applied this across the board. Imagine if we applied this, again, to commercial trucks. There already is policy that's in place by certain companies. And if they own that equipment, they have the right to do that because that's a commercial vehicle. And we can have that debate. But in terms of the debate surrounding the imperfections within that technology, I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to be done before you start shutting down vehicles.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Leased owner-operators should be aware of 4 common revenue myths, lest you fall into the trap of mistaking revenue for profit. Myth 1, concentrate on increasing revenue because costs will take care of themselves. This is not true, as costs are fundamental to the profit equation and the area where owners exert the most control to improve. Myth 2, more revenue per mile is the answer to all problems. Though carrier pay packages differ in structure, revenue per mile really doesn't change much from company to company, but there can be a big difference in miles, overall gross revenue, reimbursements, and fees. Myth 3, all you have to do to be successful is run a lot of miles. In reality, revenue is only half of the profit equation. Costs are the other half. It's possible to generate a lot of revenue, yet spend $1.10 to make every dollar. Myth 4, you can tell how well you're doing by the size of your settlement check. The settlement check is only a part of the success picture. Miles driven, loads hauled, conditions, mechanical problems, time off, and especially costs all have to be considered. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. It's really interesting how many members of Congress, because they had no time really to look at what was in the infrastructure bill,
right,
and they had no idea that the kill switch for cars for 2026 was in there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's
just so you
pathetic.
know, that's the way we operate in the
Right.
United States.
Yeah. Yeah.
The people voting on a bill didn't even know what the hell was in it.
Right.
Now they're going, oh, my God, we've got to reverse this.
Yeah. Oops.
Oops.
Well, you voted for something you didn't know what you were voting for.
Yeah. And that's in almost every story I read.
Yeah. Right.
Well, we didn't know this was in there when we voted for it.
You and I were talking about like the propositions in Texas the other day, on Tuesday, and I always want to take my time with propositions. I want to find out some are very clear and straight to the point. Others can be convoluted.
Mm-hmm.
And there is information. Today, it's easier than ever to find it. But it still is a task. You still have to sit down and proactively do it. Look into it and determine whether or not you support it or not. And those are the things that should be the first rule of thumb when you're a lawmaker. The law you're voting on, you should know what's in it.
I know.
Read it. Just mind-boggling.
The Bonus Show.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So I'm just looking at different articles written by the media on this, on the kill switch, which is supposed to be in vehicles by 2026. The impairment kill switch, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. Right.
So I go to USA Today from January this year. Fact check: there's no vehicle kill switch in Biden's 2021 infrastructure bill. So what does that communicate to you?
That it's not true. They're trying to say it's not true.
Right.
That the technology isn't what everyone is claiming it is.
There is nothing that shuts down your car, would be it, right?
Right.
Then the next sentence. The claim, the bill gives government and law enforcement access to a kill switch in vehicles beginning in 2026. That's not what your headline says.
No.
And then right here, our rating, false. Automobile experts told USA Today the bill does not direct a kill switch to be implemented in cars, nor does it give any third parties, including law enforcement or government officials, access to the in-vehicle technology. Rather, the bill in question directs a federal agency to require technology that would detect driver impairment and disable the vehicle in that scenario. That's a kill switch.
That's a kill switch.
That's what a kill switch is.
Right.
I mean, they're contradicting themselves in a fact check.
It's
maddening.
It's right out of their playbook. Well, that's not. It's like talking to Fauci.
Mayorkas.
Yeah, exactly. Any of them. Oh, the border's secure. As long as you're talking about for those coming across the border.
Right. The kill switch is...
No kill switch here.
The kill switch
it just turns the car off.
Right. There's no kill switch. It
doesn't kill your car.
Right.
It doesn't kill it. It will... the car will not be killed.
Because your car can't be killed.
It can't be... It's not living. It's not a kill switch. It just turns it off.
Now, if we called it a murder switch, they might have a point. It's a manslaughter switch.
The next band that I'm in is going to be called Murder Switch.
Well, a kill switch implies that if you're impaired, that the vehicle would kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, what is this? Is this the fact that these are these young people that do all this that have no experience in vocabulary at all?
No, it's teenagers arguing like teenagers argue. It's children. It's not a kill switch, Dad. It doesn't kill the car, Dad. I mean, that's what it sounds like.
I know. Kill switch implies that if the technology shows you're impaired, in what ways we don't know yet because there are no standards for the technology. That will be a consistent rulemaking that comes from Buttigieg.
Exactly.
on his bicycle.
On his bicycle.
Pee-wee will decide.
Right.
What the technology. So we don't know what it is, but we know it has a kill switch.
Yes.
Which turns off the vehicle.
Right.
That's what that implies.
Right.
Well, no, it's not a kill switch. It just if it senses that you're impaired in some way, it'll shut down the vehicle.
Yeah.
So it's not a kill switch. That's what a kill switch is.
Right.
It's almost like the secure border.
Right. It is.
What is the secure border? Well, that secure border is more people than ever crossing the border. Well, that isn't secure. Well, that's our definition.
Right. Well, just like Fauci talking to Rand Paul. This is stupid.
Oh, God.
It's stupid. Well, it doesn't kill the car. We don't use the word kill. It's not a living.
Right. Kill implies violence.
Exactly. It won't kill the car. That implies you'll never be able to use the car again. Which in most cases you won't because you're too tired. You look sleepy, Mr. Sleepyhead. Go get some rest. And this is what it comes down to because it's built on the populist mentality that will tell you, well, we shouldn't want people getting behind the wheel if they can't drive. That's not the question. Question isn't that. The question is, how does technology deem whether you are impaired or not? Because if we're talking about a breathalyzer, then, all right, now we can talk about, well, wait a minute. You're talking about my vehicle based on no history of behavior by me, and you're going to require that of my vehicle. And, by the way, they said cameras, too. So now you can put cameras in the vehicle. That's going to be required. All right? Now it's going to determine whether you're tired or not. You're sleepy. You're impaired in any way. I'm telling you, 75% of America will have their cars shut down every morning. Man, am I tired. I stayed up way too late last night, binging Seinfeld on Netflix. Now I got to get up and go to work. I was up till 5 a.m. Got to get up and go to work. No, you don't. Sorry, boss. My car won't let me drive. My car grounded me. You call an Uber. The Uber driver's been working their second job to make ends meet because of inflation. Oh, Uber driver's not going to be there. Car just shut down. Oh, this would be a mess. A massive, massive mess. Because you're leaving it up to that mindset to write the programming as to what would be detectable by any of the devices that would apply here. And as we said, and we were right, because the bill requires the Department of Transportation to come up with the rulemaking. And that's going to happen, and that has to happen when? By the end of next year, 24? Mm-hmm. And it would apply starting in 26? Yeah. No. Absolutely not. You want to talk about mandatory breathalyzers for people who have repeated DUIs? I'm with you.
No problem. Yeah. Tougher sentences?
Yep. Absolutely. I'm with you all day. My maternal grandfather died driving a truck at the hands of a drunk driver. I'm with you. But try and convince me that the technology can determine if you are outside of a breathalyzer, that you are impaired. Because this is what people don't consider. You can be too tired to drive legally. An officer can, if they pull you over and you can't even keep your head up.
You can be arrested for that, yeah.
You are impaired.
Yeah.
And I do have a problem with people getting behind the wheel.
Because there's two things. For example, if you get pulled over and they give you the hand breathalyzer test,
right?
And if you still pass that, but he looks at you and says something's wrong,
right?
You get out and you do the test. If you don't pass that test, the officer can observe you and charge you with impaired driving.
Yep. Now let's talk about the technology that's going to measure that. Again, outside of a breathalyzer. That technology is far from perfect, and I don't know that it will ever be perfect. You know why? Because the technology is created by very imperfect humans.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why we were told, remember, the autonomous cars were supposed to be a slam dunk and no problem.
Uh-huh.
Remember that?
Right.
That's probably 10 years ago.
Right.
There's going to be no problem doing it. The technology's there. The technology isn't there.
No, it's not. Far from perfect. And you're not going to get to a point where you have, again, that technology. You know, we've talked about it in the trucking industry. Technology is very interesting to look at. Now let's talk about what controls it. Well, humans have to control it. Humans are far from perfect.
By the way, I wouldn't object if they had the technology that just told you, hey, we believe you're too tired.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's...
I don't object to that technology at all.
If there's something like that, okay. All right.
You know, if it gives me information, that's fine. But it all depends on, well, let's put it this way. I was looking the other day at the number of people that have got the booster vaccine because of all the misinformation from government. I think it's less than 8% of people have gotten that final booster. Remember, it was way up near the first one, 90%. Well, what's that based on? Why are people? Because all the lies that came from government, so they don't trust it anymore.
Yeah.
Who trusts the federal government to do the right thing? And we know in COVID, they went way over what they should have ever done to the point of shutting down society that will get people killed.
Well, if you look
because and I'm saying get people killed because they didn't. There were people that didn't go to the doctor for 2 years. The cancer rates are up because of it. Just, heart, whatever. The what do they call it? Not the collateral. I forgot what the term is for it. Excess deaths.
Yeah, because they didn't go to the doctor, and so those screenings that would have detected it 2 years ahead of time, or at least early enough to make it treatable, would have been in place because they would have gone to the doctor. They didn't go to the doctor, and they're seeing. By the way, they're seeing this in the UK right now. It's a massive problem.
And apparently the technology exists because Representative Massey has one in his truck that tells him if he's tired. He goes, it's always going off.
Right.
And it's like, I'm not tired.
Right.
So he goes, I don't personally trust it.
Well, because
but if they do it in 2026, I told you, I'm buying another vehicle in 2025.
Well, here's the other thing too. When you first wake up, you can tell when somebody first woke up. But you know what else it looks like? It looks like they've been up for 24 hours. It also looks like they're very tired because they're just waking up. Their eyes are a bit swollen. They're blinking more. Those are the things that everybody goes through when you wake up.
Well, at my age, I can't tell you how many times I'll wake up and say, oh, God, am I hungover? I shouldn't have drank so much last night. Then I go, I had nothing to drink.
Yeah. No, that's it. It's bad enough
and
without alcohol.
You get out of bed and you're stumbling around like you're, seriously, when I first get up, I have coordination problems, and that's a good night's sleep. And the harder the sleep, the more I wake up that way.
Yeah.
And, my time of waking up to getting in the car because of this shift is not that long.
No.
Most of the time it's out of bed, in the shower, clothes on, out the door. It can be 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's roughly an hour, but it's still when I'm waking up. If I had to get up, and it's happened. It happens every morning to millions of people where you wake up and you got to be in the car in 15 minutes. You got to get the kids to school so that you can get to work on time, and you're behind with both. And your eyes are blinking. Your eyes are a bit swollen. They're red. They're bloodshot. I remember I got pulled over one night on my way in when we were in Arlington back in the day, and the guy said, "Oh, you been drinking?" I said, "No, I just woke up." He goes, "Oh, okay." I said, "I didn't smell anything, but your eyes are red." I said, "Yeah, I just woke up. I work nights." And he was real good about it, gave me a warning, and that was it.
Here's one. This just popped into my mind. The number of people smoking pot.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just leave it there.
Oh, yeah. And edibles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
866-90, Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. It will be interesting to see if the Republicans get that through and if they get any Democrat support for that, to at least temporarily. Because really what it is just a pause on the kill switch for a year, which will put it to 2027 in vehicles, because they're like, we need to make sure that the technology is there before we do it. So we need to pause as Congress to examine it, because so many members of Congress didn't even know it was in the damn bill because they didn't read it.
They voted for something they didn't know.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Curley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, apparently the legislation, they're going to try it again, but it was killed on Tuesday night. The kill switch legislation. The proposed amendment failed late Tuesday in a 229 to 201 vote with 8 delegates not voting. 199 Republicans and 2 Democrats voted to defund the kill switch mandate. Voting against the amendment, 210 Democrats and 19 Republicans. So there you go. So it's still law. I will buy a vehicle in 2025.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I seriously, I will. I will buy a vehicle. I mean, I've got 2 vehicles now. One is 20 and a half years old. And if I keep it for 2 more years, that will be great. And then I'll get another vehicle. I'll keep the one that's a 2017 and get a new vehicle. Section 24 section 24220 of the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act mandates that by 2026 all new passenger vehicles shall be outfitted with impaired driving prevention technology systems that passively monitors driving performance, detects whether a driver is impaired and not just from alcohol and or drugs, and prevent or limit operation if the system detects impairment. I don't know what limit operation means.
It just won't go forward or in reverse. you can still listen to the radio.
Let's say prevent or limit. What's the difference?
Yeah.
Okay, if you're impaired, you can only go 40 miles an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Govern the cars.
Right. The systems can be outfitted to detect drivers' blood alcohol concentration and shut down the vehicle if the driver is over the legal limit, the law says. But if you're not, here's the point: if you're not over the limit, for example, if I have a glass of wine, I feel it. So I may not be over the blood alcohol concentration. I may be legally able to drive, but will it pick up the impairment and shut it down?
Quite possibly, yeah.
Because if I have a glass of wine, I feel it, and I'm not over the, I'm not over the limit at all, not even close to being over the limit.
Right. Well, again, how many people are going to be, it will be millions, but countless people waking up in the morning, still rubbing the sleep out of their eyes as they're driving their kids to school. No, you'll be walking your kids to school.
Debate on the House floor Tuesday boiled down to the Constitution's guarantee of privacy versus Americans' concerns over drunk driving. The amendment's author, Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky, called it incredible that he even had to offer the amendment. It almost sounds like a domain of science fiction, a dystopian science fiction, that the federal government would put a kill switch in vehicles, adding that Americans have a fundamental right to travel freely. Massey pointed out to unknowns with the upcoming technology, asking if it would use cameras, if insurance companies could access the data without permission, what sorts of waiting periods would restore the vehicle's operation, and if authorities would follow the Fourth Amendment once they have access to this kind of observation.
Again, when imperfect humans are creating the rules and regulations and the guidance of the technology, which is also invented and updated by imperfect humans, you're not going to get to that point of this big government utopia unicorn of, see, this will prevent. No, because what it will do is it will limit people's ability to drive when it shouldn't be.
Well, the funny thing is they keep saying that this is, oh, God. Representative Debbie Dingell of Michigan opposed Massey's amendment, calling it an insult to every American who's been hurt or lost loved ones to drunk driving. Multiple Democratic delegates voiced strong opposition as well, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida. She said the law does not require auto manufacturers to install kill switches. Yes, it does. We just read you. I mean, it's just.
Right. Yeah.
Passive drunk driving technology is a vital tool in safeguarding our loved ones and for other innocent people on the roads.
That technology already exists for those who have been convicted.
Well, here's a point. If it's that serious, why do we put people in jail who are drunk and kill somebody in jail for months and not for 20 years?
Right. No, you give them an excuse, right? Intoxicated manslaughter.
Right.
Well, how did they get intoxicated? You're basically saying, well, they were impaired, and so the sentence should be lighter, and it often is lighter. But if you make that decision to do that, and then while inebriated make the decision to drive and you kill someone, you're responsible. And the fact of the matter is, too, that, again, this will be, this back and forth will be on the basis of, well, of course, we don't want unsafe drivers on the road. That's not the question.
But Democrats know they have a problem because they keep lying about the legislation. Mm-hmm. They keep saying it does not require auto manufacturers to install kill switches. It does.
Yep.
We just read you the quote from the bill. That it would vehicles outfitted with impaired driving prevention technology systems that passively monitor drivers' performance, detect whether a driver is impaired, and prevent or limit operation if the system detects impairment. That's a kill switch.
Yes.
Has every Democrat turned into Mayorkas?
Yes.
If you're going to defend a bill, defend what the bill says.
Right. And it's law until something changes.
Yeah, it'll be law in 2026.
And it requires the DOT to come up with a rulemaking next year.
Yep.
Secretary Pete will have to issue that ruling. And again, there is no question. This is why this is how you can tell this is a massive liberal big government move, because they're going to go based on the populist mentality that, and by the way, who's going to say, well, no, I think people who are unsafe should be able to be on the road? That's not the question. It's not the debate, but that's the debate they want you to have.
Well, they keep making that the kill switch, they seem to be making the case that the definition of a kill switch is that the police can shut down your car or the government can shut down your car for any reason. Well, no, that's communicating. That's the kill switch in the car communicating with police. The kill switch is shutting the car down.
Right. If it limits the movement of the car in any way, it's a kill switch. And it's going to, again, be this imperfect technology that's going to apply the standards of those who design it, who regulate it. No, there's some serious issues here.
Definition of a kill switch. The purpose of a kill switch, before vehicles, but the purpose of a kill switch is to prevent theft of a machine or data or shut down machinery in an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it does.
Mm-hmm.
The emergency is you're impaired.
Right.
Or it senses that you're impaired.
Yes.
Whether you are or not. That's still to be
By
debated.
the standards that are applied to the
Right.
technology that is designed and implemented by imperfect humans.
The degree to which a kill switch limits, alters, or stops an action or activity depends on the production process or program it is intended to protect.
Mm-hmm.
So the Democrats keep saying it's not a kill switch. Obviously, it's a kill switch, and they just say, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Because they know that's the problem.
Mm-hmm. If you're talking about a warning, that's one thing. If you're talking about keeping the vehicle from operating, that's a kill switch.
Yeah. Why can't Democrats defend one damn bill based on the truth?
I don't know. Why can't some Republicans read what they're signing?
Oh, I agree
what they're
with
voting
that.
for?
Oh, I know.
It's just maddening.
Yeah. Because that was the other excuse from some Republicans. We didn't get a chance to read the bill. But that's the other point. They say we didn't get a chance to read the bill.
Uh-huh.
Others say the bill was so long, there wasn't enough time to read the entire bill, so we didn't know that the kill switch legislation was in it. But it's a kill switch.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we decide to change the definition, like we have in biology.
Mm-hmm. Why not? It doesn't kill the car. The car won't be dead.
No, we don't want men competing against women in sports, but men aren't competing against women in sports. These are transgenders, and they believe that they're women, so they're women.
They tell us they're a woman.
Right.
Because they say so.
Just change the definition of words.
Right.
Democrats know they can't defend it if the kill switch is in there.
Yeah.
If it's just a warning.
I'm waiting for Dr. Fauci to issue an opinion on it. It's not a kill switch. Thanks, Fauci. I mean, this is the world we live in today. We have to scramble to fix something that our elected representatives didn't read and helped pass. And then have this insane argument over a kill switch being a kill switch.
I mean, it's just...
But is my TikTok still working? Can I still log in? Okay, good. Good. Yeah. Yeah, we're doomed. We are absolutely doomed. My gosh.
Yeah. This is the whole gain of function again, isn't it? With
It
Fauci?
is.
Well, we changed the definition of gain of function.
It's not a kill switch. It doesn't kill the car.
Yeah, we changed the
car
definition,
isn't a living being. It is not a creature. It doesn't have life to begin with. Kill implies that you're taking the life out of it. It doesn't kill.
So Wasserman Schultz said that this week. Mm-hmm. The USA Today article was from January. It was saying the same thing. It's not a kill switch.
Uh-huh.
It only shuts down the car if it senses you're impaired.
Yeah, it doesn't kill it.
That's a kill switch.
The car will be usable again. It doesn't kill it.
Just if you're going to defend it and tell the truth.
Yes.
Say no, the kill switch should be in there.
Right.
And if it malfunctions or the technology is not perfect, well, then deal with it. That's what we need to do.
Yeah. Defend
it that way. They won't.
It feels like my brain is about to throw a kill switch dealing with all this crap.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Talking about that in 2026, you had Congress vote on it again, attempting to get rid of the kill switch in vehicles for distracted or impaired driving. Because distracted driving also is what they're looking at.
Right.
And that's, what are you going to have? You're going to have the cameras looking at your eyes, whatever. Here's the thing. Because we went through this back a few years ago with cell phones and the whole hands-free.
Right.
And what they found out was that even if you're talking, because the whole thing is you're being distracted if you're on your cell phone and you're holding it up to your ear. And so everybody went hands-free, and that's what became the standard now is hands-free, and all automobiles have the hands-free option in it, all new automobiles. You're still distracted.
Yeah, it's actually the conversation that's keeping you distracted.
It's the conversation that keeps you distracted. So the entire thing of wanting cell phones out of vehicles, the compromise was hands-free, which actually doesn't solve the problem.
Right.
But image-wise, it does.
Yeah.
And so you're still distracted while you're driving a vehicle when you're on hands-free.
Right.
What they also found out is when you're talking to someone else in the vehicle, that also makes you distracted.
Right.
Will the cameras pick up on that and stop your vehicle? And how long will it stop your vehicle?
Right.
What did they also find out distracts you in a vehicle? By scientifically looking and using the technology that may be in the vehicles. We don't know yet because the rulemaking is not out because Congress gave the authority to Pete Buttigieg listening to the radio. Listening to the radio makes you a distracted driver. The science shows it. So if we're really concerned about all of it, everything must be taken out of a vehicle. You can't talk in a vehicle. You must have hands at 10 and 2.
Only one person in a vehicle at a time.
One person in a vehicle at a time, and everybody goes 20 miles an hour.
Yes. And if you must travel with your spouse, the spouse cannot say a thing to you.
Right.
While you're driving, ever.
All right, that mandate might be okay.
I'm just proposing something. I'm not saying I'm for it or against it.
I'm thinking about that. That might be under consideration. But, so these are all, if you want, because we had talked about this a long time ago when they said, well, automobiles are so dangerous, and we need to do something, put people on public transportation. And we said, if you want to save 30,000 lives a year, if lives are all that matters, then you make the maximum speed limit 20 miles an hour. You'll save 30,000 lives a year in the United States. Why don't we do that?
Right. Exactly.
Because if it's about saving lives, then really save lives. And if it's really about saving lives, you strap yourself in. I used to race the legend cars at Texas Motor Speedway. You're strapped in almost as tight as you are in an F-16, because I've been in an F-16, and how tightly you're strapped in, and the headrest and everything else, just like a NASCAR driver. If we want to save 30,000 lives, we have the technology to do it now. We refuse to do it. Why?
Because we want our freedom.
We want our freedom, and we want our quality of life.
Yep.
There's a quality of life to being able to drive and have a radio and talk to people and everything else.
You could in a populist fashion, you could argue that vehicles should be illegal.
I believe
we
I
talked
believe
about
that
this.
I believe that is being argued by the radical left.
We talked about this before. If you introduced for the first time vehicles with the technology today, let's say that Henry Ford were alive today and he came up with the technology, but it's today's technology, not the Model T. And he said, but tens of thousands of people every year will die while using this technology. Do you think it would get passed? No, it absolutely would not.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. And I think it's important just to let everybody know how government acts, because we have been through this already, and with cell phones.
Yeah.
And I remember when this was a discussion all the time, and just one article that I picked out here from Zurich.com, dangers of using hands-free devices while driving. Despite the widely held belief that they are safer, studies show hands-free devices do not significantly reduce distracted driving accidents. While distracted driving related to devices is discussed, it's often with an eye on handheld phone use. Drivers who have had accidents while texting or holding their phones during calls, that has also largely been the accident risk addressed in government legislation. As of this writing, this was September of 23, 28 states with the District of Columbia and 4 U.S. territories prohibit drivers from using handheld cell phones for any use. 48 states, D.C., and 3 U.S. territories have bans on texting while driving. So far, no states have bans on hands-free use of cell phones or other devices while driving, though many states do have total bans on cell phones use for drivers under certain ages or those with permits or intermediate licenses. The heavy focus on safety efforts on handheld phone use and texting might seem appropriate, as those actions clearly result in drivers not having both hands on the wheel or, when dialing or texting, their eyes on the road. However, research shows the cognitive distraction of driving while speaking on a phone, regardless of handheld or hands-free use, or using voice-activated controls or virtual assistants like Alexa, Siri, or Google Assistant, causes serious life-threatening distraction dangers. It can be difficult to impossible to determine when distracted driving was the precise reason for a fatality Injuries, thanks to questions asked by police at the scene of the accident, are a little easier to track, but statistics show it is having a deadly impact. And so what happened with legislation? And by the way, we knew this when this legislation was being passed. The studies were out there, and this goes back a decade ago,
right?
And the studies have still shown the same thing, that it's actually not holding it up to your ear that causes the major distraction. It's the conversation.
Yep.
Any conversation that you're having in a vehicle causes distracted driving, and as right here, the studies show, can be deadly.
Yeah. Yep.
But we as a nation said, oh, okay, take it out of the hand, hands-free, and everything is fine, and then manufacturers put it in, and then they found out what else is, what they're finding out now, that your infotainment center that you have, that causes distracted driving.
Yeah.
You're always looking over at it. You're looking at the screen.
And it's not the same technology. You're having to, back in the day with radios, you know how you could remember the pull-out pre-programmed buttons?
Yeah, you're right,
Yeah. And you could never get it right on the AM band. It was like, it was always just a little off, and which was great. I loved it. But the reason that was created is so that you could just quickly, hit that button and it would jump over. You're just moving the dial essentially in quick fashion. Well, these days the technology is all new, and it's also proprietary. Not just proprietary based on the OEM, but proprietary based on the type of device you're using to connect with the vehicle to listen. It's not just, what is embedded and integrated into that dash. It's what you're pairing with that technology. So you're looking at your phone and you're looking at your dash, trying to figure out why your Olivia Newton-John collection isn't coming up from Amazon.com. You rolled your eyes on that. You don't like Olivia Newton-John?
Well, she's okay. I mean, I don't know why you pick. I was sort of like, why did you pick on her?
I didn't pick on her. She was a great artist.
Okay, I was saying
it was real.
You could have said Taylor Swift or something.
No, that's crap. I don't listen to crap.
Oh yeah, listening to Olivia Newton-John was distracting.
Yeah. Well,
Taylor Swift would be.
It's a good thing they don't have video players in the dash.
But my point is that remember the emphasis in Congress. Remember state legislatures. We need to get rid of cell phones in the vehicles. And then all of a sudden it went hands-free, and they found out, well, it's really sort of exactly the same, maybe just a tiny bit, but really the majority of danger is still there. But they completely forgot about it. Why? Because the public wants that quality of life. Quality of life was more important than 30,000 or 40,000 deaths.
Well, and you could take all the technology out of it, and you're still going to see that idiot driving down the road eating a bowl of cereal while driving with his knees on 8 and 4.
The best one ever was the guy I was driving down, guy was eating, had the newspaper out when people still read newspapers, and had his dog on his lap, who was looking out the window at the same time.
Right.
While he was driving.
Take the technology out of it. A bad driver is a bad driver.
Yeah.
And it's quite unfortunate that they're out there. But the fact of the matter is that technology is going to be imperfect. So technology deeming what a bad driver is very different. Because if you want to, again, if we want to eliminate the risk of driving and the dangers of driving, we can do that.
And just so you know, the National Safety Council, just so you understand that government so much is about imagery, here's what the studies have said. And this is more than a decade of studies over the last decade. Drivers using hands-free and handheld cell phones fail to see up to 50% of the information in their driving environment. This is known as inattention blindness and causes drivers to miss exits and run through red lights and stop signs. Now, here's the other important one. All right. Are you ready for this? This is why, what is this going to detect when it comes to distracted driving? How far will they go? Because these are the facts based on the studies. What's worse, using your handheld phone, or excuse me, your hands-free phone, or being at a .08 blood alcohol concentration?
It's going to be your phone.
What do you have a slower reaction time to? Hands-free, your hands-free, or being legally drunk in the vehicle?
That's going to be being in a conversation with somebody.
Absolutely. Drivers with cell phones hands-free had slower reaction time than drivers impaired by alcohol at a .08 blood alcohol concentration, the legal intoxication limit in most states.
I saw the meme the other day. I'm so old, I have to put my reading glasses on so I can hear better. And this is what happens when you actually talk about distractions. It's that conversation. And a lot of people have been there. I remember one time I was in my kitchen and I was just, kind of pacing back and forth. And I was just, I was on the phone and, my dog was sitting there by the door wanting to go out. All these things were going on. But, man, I'm deeply embedded into this conversation and I'm not thinking about anything. And I realized, my gosh, I'm just kind of walking back and forth here. I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing. It was a good thing I didn't decide to cook something during that conversation because you can be distracted. You ever looked up and then thought, man, did I run that red light? Was that a red light? Or was that a green light? After you just got off the phone? It's very real. And the fact of the matter is, technology isn't going to stop bad drivers.
And what they're saying is also that when you have passengers in cars, it's also a distraction. What makes it less dangerous is the fact that when the other person is in the vehicle and you come to an intense situation, they may become the backseat driver and warn you of it, where the person on the other end of the cell phone does not.
Yeah.
But while that passenger is talking to you and you're listening, you are just as distracted.
Sure, that's why in Texas, teenagers can't have, I don't know if it's all the way up to 18. They cannot have more than one other person in the car that is under the age of 18, I believe is the law. But basically the idea is you don't want a car full of teenagers in that car and they're all talking to each other. That's a massive distraction.
Listening to the other person during a cell phone conversation decreased activity in the area of the brain associated with driving by 37%. But the most important part here, and I think this is important because this shows you the government will do and sit there something that is symbolic. Stop with the hands held. And they find out that even hands-free is more dangerous than being legally intoxicated in the vehicle.
Right.
That's what the studies show.
Right.
Has there been a push? And the National Safety Commission in 2020 put out a report advocating for the ban of all cell phone and all interactive technology in vehicles used by drivers.
Tell me what isn't interactive technology.
Yep. Hands-free devices and voice command systems are not safer. Your infotainment system, the National Safety Council wants gone from your vehicle.
Well, tire inflation. What about any warning, lane departure warnings, everything else? It's all a distraction.
Oh, but you're right, it is. When I was driving the other day and it was raining, and all of a sudden my blind spot monitors, because it was raining so hard, was picking that up as dry. I'm looking all over the place. I was distracted.
Right.
I was distracted because it was making a mistake and telling me there were vehicles on both sides of me. The huge brake thing that you look at in your windshield, it was brake, and it will hit the brake automatically. It didn't.
Right.
But I have that technology to do that, and that could have screwed me up completely while I'm driving, and I was only going 30 miles an hour. That's how bad the rain was. But the fact is, what that it was distracting from me. And when there was that much rain, you couldn't see in front of you. You never know what can happen.
Well, again, we can sit and debate ourselves right out of vehicles.
Yeah, of course.
And you know what the problem is? You ever seen someone walking while looking down at their phone?
Yeah. Well,
sorry, no walking either.
And, well, they talk about pedestrian accidents and distracted pedestrians is a huge problem too.
Now stay at home. Oh wait, most accidents happen
at home.
in the home. Right. Quit being.
I may kill myself just so I don't die from something.
Well, this is the problem, that we can sit and talk ourselves out of anything because it's, well, you don't want people to die or get hurt, do you? We take inherent risks every single day. Number one cause of deaths amongst teenagers is driving. Yet we give them a car with a smile on our face.
Is it fentanyl now? Did that in the last couple of years?
I don't know if it is. I don't know that it is for teenagers.
Okay.
But for the longest time, it's been
cars.
Happened,
yes. Yeah.
And we buy them the car and fill it with gas and give it to them. Because at some point, they need to learn how to drive. They've got to learn how to drive, and they've got to be good at it. We want them to be the best at it. But I can tell you right now, from years and years of teaching young people how to drive, they're not all good at it for different reasons. There's the other thing. What about drivers that just aren't as good as... There are some people that just aren't the greatest drivers, but they're not impaired. Do we take their ability away?
No, we need equity in driving.
That's right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the top of the hour, we got a lot of people who want to get in on this topic of the kill switch in vehicles. I just thought it was important to bring up because I don't think a lot of people know.
Including legislators.
Yeah. Well, about that bill, but I mean about hands-free cell phones. Mm-hmm. And I brought that up for a reason, to show you that government is huge into symbolic things with then knowing what their limit is. Even if they haven't solved a problem, mm-hmm. they made it symbolic, and they didn't solve the problem. Mm-hmm. And you see the recommendation from the National Safety Council. They want hands-free cell phones gone. They want the infotainment system gone. They want everything gone in a vehicle.
Yeah, right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we're Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, talking about in 2026, the kill switch for vehicles. The Democrats denied that it's a kill switch, but it's a kill switch.
Yeah.
Which we don't know exactly what the technology is because they haven't done the rulemaking yet. It was basically, again, one of the rules saying we want to put technology in. Want to put technology into vehicles, mandated for 2026 vehicles that will monitor to see if you're intoxicated or distracted. Mm-hmm. So nobody knows what it's going to be, but Representative Massey this week said we need a delay of 1 year on it. He couldn't get the votes for it. Right. And the concern is, well, what will it actually monitor? What they have said, though, it will shut down the vehicle if it senses you are intoxicated or distracted. And the Republicans are screaming, What are the parameters here?
Right.
What does the technology do?
Right.
And nobody knows yet because the rulemaking process hasn't been complete. And this is one of the problems that we all have because we've seen what Biden has done with the border. Because Congress will pass a law and doesn't have specific parameters because they wish to give the executive branch leeway because you're not sure what's going to happen in certain situations. Well, they take the leeway, and we saw what happened. For example, you want another example of it? Why you have Republicans and people like us look at this and say, I don't want this. I don't want it. I don't like this. There's too much leeway because of the leeway that so many states gave governors because we didn't have a pandemic for a century. And we saw the leeway that the governors took, so many governors took, not all, but so many governors took in shutting down their states. 2020 hindsight vision now, we know almost everything that government did and these governors did was not necessary.
Yeah.
We now know that.
Yeah.
And so you look back and say, well, then why are you going to give them this leeway when you don't know what the technology is going to be? You don't know how it's going to monitor. You don't know what type of distraction. And that's why we decided to go through, as we did last hour, and look at actually what distracts you in a vehicle by all the studies and go back to a topic that we dealt with 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and that was cell phones and vehicles, when every government level went crazy and said, you need to get rid of cell phones, that you need to go to hands-free. And what they found out is hands-free is no safer. In fact, if you use your hands-free phone, you are more dangerous than if you're at the legal limit of intoxication of alcohol in your vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you see the government saying we need to get rid of hands-free? No. Why? There'll be too much of a pushback on it. And now Democrats are claiming that there is not this is not kill switch legislation, where absolutely it's kill switch legislation because if it detects it, it would limit or shut down your vehicle. What limit means is shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's the limit? Oh, you're distracted.
You can only go 85 miles an hour?
Yeah.
No. And what about 10 and 2? I mean, how much could you administratively come in and tweak the rule as you move along? All right, your hands are not at 10 and 2. You're not a safe driver. Okay, we've all seen the insurance companies. They want you to put a dongle in the car and to monitor it so that you can earn better rates from the insurance companies. Now, you can decide voluntarily to do that, but what is it? It's monitoring your behavior behind the wheel. When the government does that, well, we don't think you're a safe driver. You just really suck at driving. We don't want you behind the wheel.
Now,
because you're creating parameters based on a political agenda that sounds like you're focusing on safety, but you're not.
Now, that's one of the things that when this legislation passed is that, well, government will be monitoring what you're doing. Mm. Well, they won't have a direct line to it. There's nothing in the legislation that gives them that authority to do a direct line to your vehicle, or that automatically, if you were distracted, it would call police. That's not in the legislation.
No, but will it be in the rulemaking?
Will it? And that's the question.
There's the discretion. There's the biggest problem.
Well, even if it's not supposed to be in the rulemaking, with the Biden administration, because we've seen what they've done with their rulemaking, they've done absolutely unconstitutional things, and that's a concern. So it's not in the legislation, but the fact is Democrats keep denying that there's a kill switch. When there is a kill switch, Debbie Wasserman Schultz said it yesterday. We read the USA Today article that said there is no kill switch in the vehicle, and there is no kill switch that will inform authorities that you're distracted. Well, that's not what a kill switch is. A kill switch is something that will shut down the vehicle. Mm-hmm. We actually had to go look at the definition of a kill switch to make sure that the Democrats hadn't got that officially changed, and they hadn't got it changed. A kill switch is you do something that it picks up on, and it will shut down the vehicle.
Right.
Now, what are the parameters to that? We don't know yet. And then Debbie Wasserman Schultz And USA Today came out and said it's not a kill switch. It will simply limit or shut down your vehicle. Well, that's a kill switch.
That's a kill switch. It's interesting.
God,
is
it's
that
frustrating.
Before we launched the show, there's this one computer screen here that sits in the center of our studio. Look at the web ad that's been on there since we launched it. This was before we started talking about this.
Love your kids.
Love your kids, ? Make sure they're buckled up in the back seat. Learn more. The NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA is what we call them. It starts with a question. Do you love your children? I don't know. Which ones are we talking about? This is how it's argued and put into law. Well, do you want people that are dangerous behind the wheel? It's not the question.
And that's why we asked the question on the parameters, because that's why we went back to the whole cell phone thing, to show you that the research shows that even if you're hands-free, you're more dangerous than if you're at the legal limit of alcohol intoxication in your vehicle.
Right.
And so what will they monitor? How will they justify it? How will they judge it? You're on your phone talking. You're talking to a passenger. Now, as they've stated, the research shows that talking to a passenger is less dangerous, but only because if a situation comes up, that passenger might be the backseat driver and tell you, hey, watch out for that over there.
Mm-hmm.
But while you're talking to the passenger, you're just as dangerous. And the other thing that they found out, remember, they found out that radio is a distraction.
Except between midnight and 5 a.m.
Well, no, and then they said talk radio because you're listening and involved in the conversation. And we had said, well, they're going to ban talk radio from cars. The Democrats will really go for that. Only music radio is allowed.
Yes, and the whole talk radio being a distraction is fake news.
And as I found out, it's it's listening to the conversation.
It's being engaged in that conversation. Yeah. And I was talking earlier about being on the phone and pacing in my own kitchen. And later I was asked by my lovely wife, well, did you see the item that I had left for you to look at sitting in the kitchen? I said, well, no, I didn't see it. It was sitting right. It was the only thing on the counter aside from, like the toaster and the sugar jar. And it was sitting right there in the open, but I was so engaged in the conversation. And it wasn't a conversation with her about that item. I was just distracted, and it was the whole reason I walked in there, by the way. You're going to be, whatever's going on in your mind is going to be the distract. By the way, you don't have to be talking to anybody. There could be something going on in your life, something serious, or you could be someone like me who overthinks everything. You're thinking to yourself, okay, I got a project this weekend, and I need to get the materials, and should I get those materials here or there? Should I buy this type of material or that type of material? Going through whatever you're going through in your mind, and you're not thinking about it, and all of a sudden, oh, was that light red or green?
You have somebody you find out somebody who gets very sick, somebody in your life dies, and those days that you go through where you're in a complete zone where you're not processing the same thing.
Right.
Does it pick up on, what will the technology pick up on? These are all the questions, and because they just rammed it through in the infrastructure bill, as Massey was saying, there are so many Congress people that had no idea this was even in the bill. Well, they tried to repeal it, and they couldn't do it in the House.
Well, because again, the rulemaking can be very. They can broaden this rulemaking and include language that is very restrictive. And again, it goes back to this web ad sitting right here on our computer, starting with the question, love your kids? Well, that's not the question. Of course, the answer is this. What, do you want people to get hurt? Well, then we should do this. If you don't want people to get hurt, we should have this kind of technology. Well, we can talk ourselves and regulate ourselves out of all freedoms. The freedom of movement, by the way, is something the left would love to take away from you. You should be on public transport. You know what? You need to be taking the bus. You need to be taking the train.
Let's head to you. We go to Ginger in Norman, Oklahoma. Ginger, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Hi.
Hi. How you guys doing?
Very good.
Actually, you're doing well because you kept me chuckling for the last little bit of time. I'm out here doing nighttime delivery. I do newspapers 7 nights a week, and yes, people still do read them. And I listen on 1520 a.m. in Oklahoma City for you guys.
Thank you.
My thing is, because I am doing newspapers, and I know there are people that do so much more with their cars now, with Uber and food deliveries and things. We're on both sides of the road. We're swerving back and forth. We're sticking our head out the window. We're driving with our knees and elbows. What happens if that kill switch goes off and I'm in the road and my car just dies?
Yeah, right.
It's just dead there in the road.
No, that's a great point.
We had heavy fog the other night, and I'm turning on my windshield defrost.
Yeah.
That warm air comes and hits my eyes. It dries my eyes out.
Yep.
So now I'm doing all kinds of blinking and shaking my head, trying to see through the fog.
Yeah.
Or the snow and the ice, and it turns my car off. How long is it off? Do I freeze to death because I'm in the middle of a blizzard?
Right. Yeah, and by the way, I think the limit the vehicle, and thank you for the call, Ginger, I think the whole limit the vehicle is going to be just what Ginger pointed out. That if you're en route, if the car is moving, it likely would be the case. This is the only thing that makes sense to me. It might be something else, but it would likely be something like, oh, wait a minute. You now are impaired. You are now, because of your head movement or something in the last few minutes, we're going to limit this car movement to the next mile. In the next mile, you need to find a safe place to pull over before the car shuts down.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
That
would be the limiting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
It's the only thing that makes sense to me. I could be wrong about that, but it's the only thing that makes sense to me because that's what you would see for anybody who operates a new diesel engine with diesel exhaust fluid and your DEF tank runs dry, and then all of a sudden, okay, you've got limited use of that vehicle before you fill up that DEF tank again. And this would probably be the case. You've got whatever it is, 1 mile, or you've got 60 seconds or whatever, however they're going to limit it, and to pull over safely. And then the car is going to be inoperable.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Roadside inspections all begin with the driver interview, during which the officer will gather basic information from the driver and prepare the driver for the inspection. The officer will also be evaluating the driver, determining if the driver can speak English, is under the influence of anything, has an illness, or is fatigued. The officer will ask the driver for required documents, including vehicle and driver credentials, the driver's log, and shipment paperwork. The officer may also conduct a vehicle inspection. Before beginning the inspection, the officer will take steps to make sure the inspection can be done safely. These include chalking the wheels, wearing personal protective equipment, and explaining what will be required of the driver. The driver needs to pay close attention to these instructions so that the vehicle inspection can be conducted in a manner that is safe for the inspection official. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. 866-90-RED-EYE. We go to Steve in California about the kill switch coming to vehicles in 2026. Hi, Steve. You're on Red Eye Radio.
Hi, guys. Actually, there's no bigger distraction than eating and driving, so I guess they'll be shutting down all those drive-thrus in the restaurants. And every day I'm on the road, when somebody tailgates me, I'm distracted by that. But I was wondering what was going to happen to first responders like ambulances and policemen.
Yeah, I asked that.
When they're distracted.
I asked that question. I think those vehicles will be clearly be exempt. But if you were to apply that across the board, then what about firefighters and EMT and first responders who work very long hours? Does it mean necessarily that they're distracted behind the wheel or they're impaired while they're driving? In 99% of the cases, no, that is not the case. But if we applied that across the board, think about that also. There is some technology in commercial vehicles, but it's voluntary because it has to do with those who operate those vehicles and own those vehicles. And that's a very different thing than the government coming in and saying, all right, this technology must be there for every driver. I suspect when they get to the rulemaking part of this next year, if it's not shelved somehow, then there's going to be a lot of media attention on this, and it's going to be some pushback because there is a public comment period for any rulemaking proposal. And so that comment period is usually several weeks, a couple of months long.
Well, did they say the rulemaking is going to be in 2025?
No, 24.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I was going to say they need some time because if it's 2025,
yeah,
rulemaking,
it's next year. Yeah,
okay,
so,
all right.
Yeah,
That would give the OEMs time then to, get the manufacturing and installation of them on the assembly line.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. We had this discussion during the break. I really think that when the rulemaking is out there, you're going to get into the minutia of it, and then the comment period, and then the public doesn't know about this yet.
No.
The members of Congress didn't even know this was in the infrastructure bill.
Right.
Representative Massey was talking about it. It was 2,700 pages. Many members of Congress voted for it and voted for the bill and didn't even know this was in the bill.
Right. So imagine if this played out and it went through as it's supposed to go through. And in 26, you still have you'll have a number. You'll have millions of people that aren't aware of the technology, and it starts impairing their driving.
No, you're right. No, you're right.
If it starts doing the shutdown thing or limiting their driving, they're going to drive it right back to the dealership and say, no, thank you. The word will get out very quickly, and you're going to have lots filled with cars that nobody's going to want.
When you look at it, because they're talking about, number one, having some kind of breathalyzer in it. Now, it's a breathalyzer that you don't have to blow into. Whatever the technology is what they're talking about. And then the other thing will be cameras and other sensors looking at your eyes. And people aren't going to, people are going to look and see. They're going to know where the cameras are. They're going to sit there and go, what the hell is going on?
Right.
It's going to feel like there's a huge invasion of people's privacy. I still think that they're going to delay this. And I think when the rulemaking comes out and the specifics come out, there will be an uproar. People just don't know this is even coming in 2026 to their vehicles.
Right.
The Bonus Show.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Let's go to another call here on the whole kill switch thing, because I think it's interesting, and it's something, because I got a few emails on it saying we had no idea.
Yeah,
you're telling me 2026 they're going to be monitoring your eyes and other sensors. What are the other sensors going to be? They talked about in one of the articles, cameras, other sensors, breathalyzer.
Yeah, the head movement sensors are very popular in a lot of the technology that is voluntary at the moment.
Is that a camera or is it a infrared?
No, it actually detects, because it has basically a profile of the driver, and it knows where your head is, essentially. It's think of it like a loosely based facial recognition technology. It knows where your head is, the front of your head, and where your eyes are, but the head movement is going to be, if your chin is going down to your chest a lot, well, that can mean a number of things. Number one, you're eating Number 2, you're texting. Number 3, you're falling asleep. It could mean a number of things, but the fact of the matter is that
could be you're using your vapor.
Yeah, right.
You're like putting your head down to
Right.
use the vapor.
Right, exactly. Or you just like to put your head down. I mean, who wants to look straight ahead while driving?
You're reading a book.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Petting your cat.
Right, right,
Who's on your lap as you're driving.
right. And you're plotting to take over the world.
I did learn that in a very short mile drive one time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let your cat, who is not used to a vehicle, don't let them out of the cage because they're meowing.
Yeah, right.
You can die that way.
When I take my dog to the vet or take her to get groomed, she's 65, 70 pounds. You know, so she sits in the back seat on the floor between the two bucket seats and the front. She puts her head right there on the headrest. She just lays her head right there. I've seen these dogs. A friend of mine had this huge dog, massive dog, Great Dane. And he has a Cadillac that has a moonroof on it. And the dog had to stick its head out the moonroof. There was really no choice. There was no room in that Cadillac for the dog otherwise. And he would just drive down to the store and then drive home. He didn't take long road trips with the dog, but everybody knew this dog from driving around. There's so many distractions that you could, if we want to, we can legislate cars out of existence. If we really wanted to. And if you're going to use the argument, well, if it saves just one life, cars are gone. They're gone. And we can decide how much freedom we want in our lives. We can let the government decide how much risk we take in our lives, because every single day there's inherent risks.
Here's my question, because this is a legit concern, knowing this administration and Democrats will take the law, pervert the law with an executive order, which then becomes law for a while until the Supreme Court overturns it. We've seen this happen in the Biden administration. This is what scares me about basically coming up with, all right, let's have technology in there that monitors your eyes, your head movement, a breathalyzer, and has a kill switch.
Right.
All right, Department of Transportation, come up with the rules for it. And when you want to update the rules, you update the rules.
Right.
I don't want that, because I don't we saw it, number one, college loans. We've seen it on the border, and we've seen it in COVID legislation with governors where they were given too much leeway and went way over where they should during COVID.
Right.
Through the legislature. Then the legislature had to come in later on after the damage was already done and limit those governors' ability to do certain things during a pandemic or during some type of emergency. And so they all took a Congress or the legislature in good faith many times says, all right, here is the broad outlook of the law. If there's an emergency, or here's the broad outlook of a particular law, we're going to trust the executive branch to do the right thing and show restraint, but give them the ability to do something, because we don't know what could happen. You know, it's why it's why the president of the United States is commander-in-chief. Because at some point, one person has to make that decision.
Yeah.
And if you abuse that power, as we have seen now, that's when you get that's when things get really screwed up.
Right.
And we've seen it get screwed up. I mean, the damage from COVID, think about this, what we know from COVID. We never needed the lockdowns. Never needed to happen. Never needed to close a school. Never needed a mask.
Right.
Never needed to lock people in their homes. Never needed to close down the parks. Never needed to close down the bars. Never needed to, or restaurants. We didn't need to do any of it. And why? because, as I said, everybody was going to get it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Yet all these things were done. And think about this. Not only were these things done, but when other scientists came out and said, this is wrong, the government did everything they could to destroy their reputation, their careers, and their lives.
Yep.
So this is what we're used to. I'm not making this up. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not, what if we give them this power and they abuse it? They already have, and we have multiple examples just from the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so now we're supposed to trust that they're going to do the right thing when it comes to technology that can shut down your vehicle.
Yep.
That they will do the right thing in any way, that the actual technology will work.
Right.
That cars won't be shut down because of icy conditions or because every human being is different and reacts different, that the distracted driving, isn't going to shut you down when you're on your cell phone, shut you down when you're talking to a passenger. I have no guarantees from anybody, and I am allowed now, because of what government has done, to do things where people would say, well, you're doing a conspiracy theory hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
Government will be responsible. We know government will not be responsible. And when they're not responsible, we know that when it's a mistake and they've done the wrong thing, they don't correct it. They attempt to destroy the people who are coming up with the truth.
Look, it is no secret. They've been talking about it for a long time. Liberals want to coerce you out of your vehicles. A former transportation secretary, Ray LaHood, said that. We know you don't want to be in these cumbersome vehicles.
Yeah, my job is to coerce you out of vehicles. That's almost a quote from him.
From Ray LaHood.
Yeah, he was Obama's transportation secretary.
Yeah, and well, you already know the current transportation secretary would rather ride a bicycle.
Yeah.
He'd rather have you on public transportation.
Yeah, we put Pee Wee Herman in charge of the U.S. transportation system.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's head to you. We go to Matt in Nashville, Tennessee. Matt, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Hi, Matt.
Hello, guys. How you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, great to get to talk to you guys. I listened to you. I have for many years. I'm a truck driver. And all that technology you're talking about is not new. We've got all the cameras and things in our trucks right now that watch our distracted driving.
Mm-hmm.
If we grab our cell phone, we lose our bonus.
Mm-hmm.
The kill switch is not new. That was implemented in the commercial vehicles when the ELDs first came out. If we exceeded our driving time, it would shut the truck off no matter where you were at.
Mm-hmm.
They had to do away with it because it was clustering up the highways.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you get 3 or 4 cars on a 4-lane highway to shut off, you just shut the whole highway down.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, they looked at, and we've seen this with NHTSA and the DOT over the years on rulemakings, and also basically implementing those rulemakings through technology, where it is absolutely imperfect, and then the feedback had them rolling back some of those rules or changing some of the rules. And this is the problem, that now apply that to tens of millions of cars every morning, where people are jumping out of bed and within 15 minutes they're behind the wheel. And
Amen.
And so as they do that, and we can all have the discussion on how many good drivers and bad drivers there are. In fact, you truck drivers know full well how many four-wheelers are out there. In fact, what did the stats show? That when there is an accident between a big rig and a four-wheeler, more than 75% of the time, it is the fault of that person behind the wheel of the four-wheeler. And it's because people don't think when they're driving. And it's quite unfortunate, but it is the case. The question is, do we want government? Because if we're going to take it here, there is no way it doesn't end with, well, sorry, we can't have cars.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Amen.
Well,
Yeah.
well, the thing is,
And my biggest fear is not the cars out here anymore; it's the other truck drivers. They don't train anody anymore.
Well,
They're idiots.
Well, there's a big problem.
I can say that because I am a truck driver.
That there is a big problem right now across the board with a number of reasons as to why certain people shouldn't be behind the wheel. And again, the question
Amen.
is, what is the solution to that? Well, the big one-size-fits-all solution is never a good thing from government because they come in, and it sounds noble. We would all love to say, listen, we want every distracted driver, every drunk driver, we want them off the road. That is a given. But how do you implement such policy? Well, you can't do it because the technology is designed by imperfect humans and implemented by imperfect legislators and bureaucrats. That's just the way it's going to be. There's no way around that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The autonomous vehicles, they would be okay if you could eliminate 100% the human interaction.
And exactly.
Sure.
Matt. And by the way, we might be on our way to that. According to the way that AI is going, it's all going to think for itself anyway. Thanks, Matt. We appreciate that. But that's exactly where we are. We can decide if we truly want safe roads, because the argument always is, if it saves just one life. Well, if we're going to get down to that, then nobody drives anywhere.
well, it's interesting because when you say, it's true when you say that there are people that want people out of vehicles. That's why we bring up what Ray LaHood said. Mm-hmm. My job is to coerce people out of vehicles.
Right.
He was Obama's transportation secretary. We're not making that up. Mm-hmm. So we're not the ones throwing out a conspiracy theory saying they eventually want you out of vehicles. They've already said it.
Yep.
That is their job. Ray LaHood said it. That's my job.
And by the way, we do know, before we get the email, yes, we do know that he's is a Republican.
Doesn't make any difference.
Doesn't make any difference. If you're going to if you're going to promote liberal agenda, you're a liberal.
Yeah.
I don't care what you call yourself. I don't care what party affiliation you have.
Right. And you know that you go to the different blogs where they say, well, electric vehicles are so expensive, so are gas vehicles. It's like, fine. We want people in public transportation anyway. That's our goal.
Right.
So it's not going to happen.
No.
There would be too much of a pushback, but understand that's what they want. In fact, this technology, may not be put into vehicles. Well, the technology might be the kill switch. I don't believe will be for a significant period of time. I don't believe we'll see it in 2026. I believe when the public hears it, there'll be a huge blowback to this.
Because if they don't hear about it that way, and they experience it after buying a car, they're going to return that car, and you're going to have millions of cars sitting on lots not being sold.
866-98-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Really interesting. I don't think that when this hits the news, people will not be for this. They may be for the technology that tells them the technology's okay. Mm-hmm. The kill switch, they won't be for. Mm-hmm. Right. If it tells them, look, we are, you're tired, take a rest. That's fine.
Right.
People probably say, okay, that's okay with
or
that.
How
Now, they may not want to pay for the cost of that because of how expensive cars are and what that may add to the cost of the car.
And it will add to the cost of the car. What if a PSA with Sarah McLachlan came on? You're tired, sad song singing about how tired you look.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.